There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with two more boxes in my unboxing of the books, my most favorite books that I stored at my parents' place when I left the country to move to Japan a decade ago, and they kind of went missing for many years, and we just found them last night. So this will be box B and box C. I'm going to try to go a little more quickly so that I can get two boxes in one average length video, and this will also be my record of which book is in which box, as I may want to get them over to Japan or get them to another place in the future. But first, a brief addendum to the box A video. This is an addendum to box A. This is one of Mavis Gallant's very few novels. A Fairly Good Time. I don't think I ever read it, that I got signed by Her Majesty. The Swimming Pool Library by Alan Hollinghurst, which he signed for me at the Gay Games in Vancouver in 1990. And I read and loved. It's time for a reread. Unfortunately, this one didn't go into the box quite right, so it's a little warped, but just needs to be on a regular shelf to fix. An autographed copy of Nadine Gordimer's essays, The Essential Gesture, Writing, Politics, and Places. And a short collection of short fiction by Nadine Gordimer, also autographed, Crimes of Conscience. And unfortunately, I don't remember the story whether I picked this up at a used bookstore after I went to the Nadine Gordimer reading in Toronto in the 1990s, or what, but it's not signed, because this is a first edition, not for publication, 15 stories, published in London in 1965, but I must have acquired it later or something. Alright, let's go back to box B and C. In no particular order, I acquired and read 3/4 or 4/5 of the newest translation of Proust's In Search of Lost Time, the one that Lydia Davis was associated with. She translated the first volume. There were multiple translators. The general editor was Christopher Prendergast. This is volume 2, which I read. I read up until, I think, halfway through. There were 6 volumes in this edition, and I read up to halfway in volume 5, and I just was so sick of it, and I don't know why I kept them, actually, because I don't plan to ever read anything about or by Proust ever again, but they were attractive editions. Much more meaningful, this was, I think, Wei-Sun Choi's last novel, All That Matters. Wei-Sun Choi was a gay Asian-Canadian novelist who just died at maybe the age of 80 earlier this year, and his earlier novel, which is also in one of these boxes, The Jade Peony, meant a great deal to me when I read it, and he was a wonderful man and a great writer. The title is All That Matters, and he signed it to Sean, who matters. Not sure in retrospect why I kept this one back, Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. I read it, don't remember a damn thing about it. I remember that I quite liked it, but anyway, I kept it. I have a lot about Mandela and South African anti-apartheid stuff, and this was a book that one of the co-authors was a grandson of Nelson Mandela, Dumani Mandela, in dialogue with a South African Jewish rabbi. It was not that great of a book, but had a lot of interesting stuff in it. African Soul Talk When Politics Is Not Enough. Volume 5 of the Proust. Look at that. That's where I got. I got the bookmark. I bookmarked it. I got to page 502. Almost finished volume 5, and that's where I quit in disgust. And you could not pay me to finish it. Bookmarked with a card from Tom in 2004. That would be the right year. Where was I in 2004? I don't know who Tom is, but anyway. Volume 3 of the In Search of Lost Time. Volume 4. Autographed copy of gay Canadian writer Timothy Findley's best-known work, Governor General Award-winning The Wars. It's not very good. A novel by Carol Shields, autographed, The Box Garden. Paul Russell is a gay American novelist, and I can't remember if I've read this. I know that the one that I did read, which I think was Boys of Life, or The Salt Point. One of them I read and loved. Was it this one? I was interested in him, so that's why I kept it. But I can't remember if I kept it because I read this one or because I wanted to read it. Volume 1 of the Proust. And the final volume, which I never got to. Finding Time Again. I will not be finding time for this one. And 2 very obviously used Q-tips in the bottom of that box. What the hell? Quite a good short story collection by David Levitt, Family Dancing. Probably the last good book he wrote. Signed. And a gay memoir, very canonical, The Best Little Boy in the World by John Reed. This was another book that I did some academic research and writing about, and that's why I kept it. And it's pretty good. Damon Galgutt's novel, The Good Doctor. This was a good book. It's signed by the author, gay South African writer. Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer, autograph copy. It has a great opening paragraph. I don't think it was really... There was so much buzz about it, but in retrospect, this was nothing great, except for the opening paragraph. And the last one for box B, A History of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatoon, the First Half Century by Don Kerr and Stan Hansen. Don Kerr was one of my English profs. Well, this, I think, is signed. Oh, no. I thought it was. I never got him to sign it. Box C. This is the 1967 history of my hometown, the Land of Plenty. I don't know how I would feel about this novel today, but I thought it was an absolutely stunning novel when I read it back in the day. Jonathan Franzen's The Corrections. More Nelson Mandela stuff. A Prisoner in the Garden, opening Nelson Mandela's prison archive. Wow. Britta and I are buddy reading his prison letters. I should take this back, shouldn't I? Yes, I should. I will. One of my top reads of all time, Jose Saramago's Blindness. Another signed book by Joan Didion, After Henry. Of Nadine Gordimer's most well-known novels, signed by her, A Sport of Nature. I actually liked Gordimer's short stories better than her novels. Jump and Other Stories by Nadine Gordimer. And I have read this tome of a biography of Mandela by Anthony Sampson. I have little memory of this gay novel, but I think it was one that I bought just before I moved out of Canada, and so I wanted to put it aside to get to it someday, and that's all I remember. Pulling Taffy by Matt Bernstein Sycamore. It inhabits the boundaries between fiction, autobiography, and truth. Okay, so anybody read it? This is also a work autographed by Jonathan Safran Foer. He was the editor of this, A Convergence of Birds, original fiction and poetry inspired by the work of Joseph Cornell. That topic, all these years later, holds little interest for me, but it's a beautiful put-together book, and I've got it in a box, and I know exactly where in Canada. Classic gay novel from the 1960s, I believe, John Ricci's City of Night. A rather overwritten and belabored, so mythological, academic bullshit memoir about gay male mythology, The Elusive Embrace, Desire and the Riddle of Identity, Daniel Mendelsohn. This is a book I liked much better at the time, even though I didn't understand it, and now that I'm older and wiser, I know it's complete and utter pedantic, pretentious bullshit! My favorite movie of all time, I've never read the play, but here's the play, 6 Degrees of Separation by John Guare. Carol Shields' last novel, Unless, autographed copy. Unfortunately, I acquired another copy of this to finally read in Tokyo and couldn't get past the first chapter. Carol Shields is not for me anymore. I recently hauled a new copy of this, but this was my old copy of Tell Freedom, the memoir by the black South African writer Peter Abrahams. And I think I like my new copy better than this, so I'll keep this here. Autographed copy of Andrew Holleran's Essays, Ground Zero. And an autographed copy of one of my favorite gay Canadian novels. It's really a gay Sri Lankan novel, Funny Boy by Shyam Salvadurai. And it's a wonderful novel. I'm looking at the pile of books that I'm vowing to take back in my suitcase this trip. So this one, not yet. But I love this. In fact, this is on Scribd as an ebook. But Shyam Salvadurai was so hot. In my Awkward Encounters with Authors video, which I will link in the show notes, I talk about having a memorable encounter with him. But this is a great novel. That's it for box B and C. Stay tuned for further boxes coming soon. Thanks for watching.